Before I even begin this story, it's not mine. It's my cousin's. He told me this once when me and him were hanging out at my apartment late at night, and we were talking about scary experiences while browsing YouTube and listening to scary stories. I'm a bit of a creepypasta nut, if not all things horror. But I don't believe in the paranormal or anything in the line of cryptids, ghosts, etc. Trust me, I love the thought of all the scary things that could be out there, and I like creepypastas as much as the next guy. But what my cousin told me, I really don't know what to make of it. It was around 2 a.m. at this point, and we had gotten to a video about scary experiences at a graveyard. I know it's super cliche. I can see some of you rolling your eyes now. But that's when my cousin paused the video and turned to me. We'd often do this through videos. We'd pause it and kind of comment on the scary things we'd remembered that we'd experienced. So this is his story, from me to you. One mouth to another. It was Saturday, and the day was coming to an end. The sun was just barely shining through the trees and onto the average suburban houses, and everything had a certain glow to it. Me and my buddies, Alex, Michael, and Austin, had all been hanging out for the day. It was one of those days that you've been hanging out all day and don't really feel like you really did anything. We just exited a gas station after getting snacks and drinks for ourselves. Not really sure of what we'd be doing for the rest of the night. We'd originally planned to head back to Austin's house, since we'd spent all the previous night at his house because of a party we were all at, but didn't feel like being stuck in a house for the night. And that's when Michael had an idea. He suggested we'd all go to a graveyard. We all looked at each other, and not being sure what the heck else to do that night, we agreed. Now, I've been to graveyards before, and it never really scared me. To be honest, none of us scare easy. So we made our way to a graveyard. As we pulled up to the graveyard, it was already dark, but the moonlight was bright, so it illuminated everything outside. It wasn't pitch black, and the trees and the gravestones casted a shadow behind themselves because of the moon. When we got to the graveyard, the gates were closed, but fortunately for us, the graveyard's fence bordered a public park, and that made it easy for us to sneak in without seeming too suspicious. We left the car at the park and started making our way through the park to the fence that the graveyard shared with it. Being teenage boys, we were laughing, making jokes, and just being stupid as we jumped from the stone fence and walked further into the graveyard. At this point, We were about 20 minutes in. We were towards the middle. We found an area where we could chill and kind of sit around and talk. We opened our snacks and drinks, and we just hung out for a while. That's when I noticed something. Farther out, towards the end of the graveyard as we were talking, there was a white head peering at me from behind a tree. I stared at it. I wasn't sure what it was, and even though it was too far to make out any features, I knew it was looking at me. I quickly pointed and told Alex, Michael, and Austin to look over at the tree. As I gently patted Alex, he was nearest to me to look. I'd gotten everyone's attention, and we were all looking in the same direction. We all saw it. We all saw the same white head behind the tree, staring. 30 seconds must have gone by when the head hid itself behind the tree. Then the white head popped back out, but not at the same tree. A different one. One closer to us. It went behind a tree again, and then popped out of a tree even closer than the previous. I was freaking out. These trees were all far apart, and we were seeing this head appear and disappear within seconds from one tree to another. I could make out the features now because it was getting so close. There was no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no ears, no anything. Just a white head. And it was getting closer and closer, somehow in between the trees. Austin broke out of the phase and started running. And we all broke out into a mad dash to the stoned fence. We all ran, not looking back. Alex was the first one over. Then me, Michael, and Austin. We all ran until we were at the park, looking back at the stoned fence. We were out of breath and shaking. We made some good distance, and were pretty close to the car. But that's when I saw the white head again, peering above the stone fence that we'd just hopped over. That made us all dash again, sprinting to the car. But before I turned to run, I saw the head slithering up the tree. I say slithered because that's what it looked like. Though its body looked like a cloth. Almost kind of like when someone puts a cloth over themselves to pretend to be a ghost. Sometime between us running and getting to the car, the head must have made it over the stone fence, because the last place I saw it as we were driving off was in the park. We drove off, speeding, but then had to stop because of a red light. This light was only a couple 100 feet away from the park. If I looked back through the rearview mirror, I could see the park from there. We were terrified. And we were gonna run the light. But a cop pulled up opposite of us. So we were facing each other at an intersection. The red light wasn't turning green. And sure, even though there was a cop, we were panicking because we were so close to the park. I thought any minute now, the head would appear somewhere near us. The thought of that made us want to run. Michael and Alex were in the back looking behind us, making sure it wasn't closing in on us. Thank goodness the cop waved at us, signaling we can drive. Knowing that this particular light sometimes stays red for no particular reason, even though there might be a car waiting. We all drove back to Austin's house and talked it all over. What it could be and what it couldn't be. But never came up with anything. And didn't really ever bring it up to each other ever again. I didn't know what to say to my cousin. The YouTube video, paused in the background, shined on our faces in my apartment that night. And even though I still don't believe in the paranormal, I don't know what to make of it. My cousin does not believe in the paranormal either. And what's more is he doesn't really lie about things like this. But you can see it in someone's eyes as they explain how real it is to them. And it makes you question what you believe. We talked about it too, and never got to a conclusion of what it could have been. I did make one conclusion though. I will never go to a graveyard at night.